think it's important to look at the Beasley's protest in its historical context. You've got in the immediate post-war period the end of colonialism, or at least the beginning of the end of colonialism, on the broader international stage. But in Wales too, there is protest. You've got disaffection with the spreading of conifers across great swathes of Welsh uplands. There's also protests against the continuing national service programme, and also in 1955, of course, you've got the beginning of the Llywelyn saga. So there's a lot going on. But in October 1952, you've got the first explosion at the Fron Aqueduct near Llandrindod, which is undertaken by Myriad Gweddinneithol Cymru, the Welsh Republican movement, against the flooding of Cwm Clerwen, which is the last reservoir built by Birmingham Water Corporation to provide the city and the Midlands of England with water. So it's quite a sort of enigmatic period really about to begin. I think their marriage is a crucial aspect of the campaign. Married on the 31st of July 1951, you've two people who are very, very different personalities in one sense. Eileen Beasley is a very committed Christian, and Trevor's an equally impassioned atheist. And yet there appears to be this sort of respect for the other's views and opinions. But also they both possess this sort of steely determination and resolve, I think. And I think they both needed each other and the strength which one provided the other. So I think there was a very sort of formidable partnership. But I think secondly to the love they obviously and quite clearly felt for each other, with a love and respect they had for the Welsh language and the Welsh way of life, which I think they considered to be under threat. So out of this sort of devotion for each other and this love for Wales and the Welsh way of life, in 1952 they receive a summons and a rate demand from Llanelli District Rural Council, which this was a point that Eileen Beasley sort of made to me quite sort of significantly really, that she felt this wasn't a request that was asked in Welsh only. They simply wrote back and said, could we have this demand in both Welsh and English? The council refused, and so began a 9-year protest which saw the couple in court 16 times. Bailiffs removed their furniture on 3 occasions. Finally in 1961 the council caved in and agreed to their request. I think in some defence of the council it was felt at the time, I suspect, that English was really seen as the language of commerce and business, and Welsh was fine for the home, which of course is nonsense, but I think this seems to be the attitude of the time. And also there seems to be something that came through as something of a surprise to me at the time in my interview with Mrs. Beasley, was that there seems to be this sort of know your place attitude in Wales as well. It's particularly in close-knit Welsh-speaking Wales. And I mention it because it came as something of a surprise that initially there wasn't considerable support for their protest in Llangennych. There were many people who apparently felt they were getting a little sort of above themselves, if you like. So that, I mean, that was to change later on, of course, when the villagers and many people further afield took great pride in the protests they'd taken. As for the legacy of the campaign, during an interview with Emmet Llewellyn-Jones, he described Eileen Beasley as the beacon of modern Welsh nationalism, is how he phrased it. He had tremendous respect. I think he felt that their protest, and I do sense that it was Eileen Beasley who was really the motivating force behind the protest undertaken with her husband, but he felt it was their collective protest which created the atmosphere for Cymdeithas i'r Iaith. He said it was a very brave thing to do. He likened Mrs. Beasley to Rosa Parks. I think he felt that the black lady who refused to give up her seat on a bus in Alabama in 1955. I think he saw a parallel between each protest, and that this was one taken against intolerance and injustice and inequality. And also Dennis Coslet, who was later to play a prominent role within the Free Wales Army, described the Beasley protest as having instilled this great sense of nationhood within him. So also Saunders Lewis came up in our interview with Mrs. Beasley that he had contacted her during his writing for Tinged i'r Iaith, which was I think it was aired in February 1962, So the importance of this protest to ensuring that the legislation was passed protecting the Welsh language, can't be understated, I don't think.